we could drink in the service, but we couldn't get a drink when the troop train stopped in Chicago, and I was still too young to do any drinking in Alaska. Weather was rather poor that winter, and I had gotten to Alaska just before Christmas, and the airplanes, 3 of them went down the first 3 weeks in January. The next door neighbor was a pilot for Wien Alaska Airlines, and I got to ride as a flight engineer, so-called, and we flew the Alaska Scouts with their dog teams to various places in Alaska. I got to Nome, Point Barrow. We stopped frequently in a place called Galena, and I did get out to gamble on the St. Lawrence Islands. So I really enjoyed my time there, but when they lost the planes, the folks said I had to stop that and go to school, so I went to school at the University of Alaska for the spring term. There wasn't any tuition at that time. I was the 47th student to register. I was the last one for the spring term. I had an English class with 10 of us, which was the largest class. I had a physics class taught by Dr. George, who was on sabbatical from the University of Texas. My English class teacher was on a sabbatical from somewhere. But one of the courses I enjoyed most was anthropology with Dr. Scarlin from one of the Eastern schools, and he was there digging up Eskimo graves in the permafrost, trying to find the type of flu that the flu was, that I think they called it the Spanish flu, that killed so many people during World War I. It was interesting. The kids liked to ski from Fairbanks, which was a few miles from where the college was, but they had problems with the bears and wouldn't let anybody out skiing, and if there were bears loose on the campus, they'd ring a bell. We had parking meters, but those parking meters were really electrical dispensers, because most of us had headbolt heaters in the car. And you'd plug it into the meter and put your money in for the electricity. So, and then the summer in May, we decided, Dad went back to work in Des Moines, and we drove the Alcan Highway back. We had a trailer, and it really gave us lots of trouble. Dad dropped a mastodon tooth that I had gotten on his foot and broke a toe on the way home. One of my keepsakes from that Alaska trip is a tie class. Dad and I went to Fox, Alaska, and panned for gold, and then the jeweler made us tie claps, which was a dog team for a sled, and it was supposed to be made from the gold that we panned. The Alaska Highway had some very nice bridges, but the approaches were very poor, and we had trouble crossing a couple of the rivers, but it was, we did get there. In Calgary, they were fixing the road to pave it, and it was just solid mud. So they put a rope from one of the earth movers to our car and pulled us through Calgary in all that mud. Then I went back to Drake for summer school and to go ahead and graduate in 1948. At that time, I wasn't very encouraged to go ahead and try for medical school because they said you'll never make it, but I did. And I really enjoyed school, but worried all the time about it. One of our experiences for the group that I was with on physical diagnosis was when somebody popped a major artery and just splashed us all in blood when we were sophomores, and that was quite disconcerting. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed OB. University of Iowa Hospital was short of interns, and they didn't have any for the summer between my junior and senior year. So I got to do an awful lot of deliveries at that time as an intern, and I really enjoyed it. Dr. Randall was chief of service, and he offered me a residency if I wanted it. So that was really quite an accomplishment. I met a young lady there in nursing school, and some of my friends were encouraging me to ask her for a date, so she was eating at the table, one of the tables in the dining room, and we went over there and joined them, and they introduced me to her, and she says we met and left. So then I was dating a girl by the name of Mary Lou Horner, and then that was Mel's roommate in nursing school. And when I was dating her, 3 times that I took her back to the dormitory, she said Mel would have had a good time tonight. So I finally thought, well, what the hell, I'll ask Mel. So I had my first date with Mel on September 30th. We went to the ranch in a little town, Eli, north of Iowa City, for dinner. I've always wanted to take Mel back there, but we never did get back there for dinner. We hit it off pretty well, and we got married December 21st, 1951, in the fraternity house, Nu Sigma Nu fraternity house. My folks came from Des Moines, but Mel's folks didn't. It was a horrible snowstorm time, and my folks ended up in the ditch and had to get pulled out, but they made it. And so everything went very well. Unfortunately, the school of nursing wouldn't let anybody that was pregnant stay in school. They couldn't be pregnant and be there. And Mel, in the spring, passed out in the chow line right ahead of the director of the school of nursing, and so she had to drop out. So then they had a doctor draft for the Korean War, and anybody that didn't have a full, any of the physicians that didn't have a full 2 years of service were subject to draft, and I was really only in for 21 months. So I joined the Air Force this time, and I went to Letterman Army Hospital for a year's training. And while I was there, Mel went back and finished her nurse's training while her folks took care of Jane. And they overfed her. She was quite heavy at that time. But she slimmed down beautifully.